Every single breath and sigh, love overflowing. Good things are growing. Love overflowing. Good things are growing. Love overflowing. Good things are growing.
And again, that was Lisa Garza and Eli Lakes off the album Grow. The song Love Overflowing. Mi nombre es Mauricio Tafur Salgado, joined by Arielle Julia Brown here today for this workshop on listening parties and celebrating your community memories. And we wanted to take a moment to start off with a prayer of gratitude. This love overflowing, good things are growing. So grateful for the spaces that support our growth. I'm grateful for you, for your growth. I'm grateful for the neighborhoods you claim that you come from, for the corner stores and the churches and the community centers and the parks and the beaches, whatever it may be that you're surrounded by that helps you grow. Grateful for that. I'm grateful for those that made this path possible for each one of us, blood and chosen, those who have placed those seeds along the way that have ensured our growth. And of course, I'm grateful for all those who came long before us. All of those, all organisms that came long before us that made it possible for us to be here today, growing, overflowing with love. And I'll name those as I name myself here in the lands of the Wappinger Lenape, otherwise known as the South Bronx. So just take a moment right now, folks, for you to post in the chat a prayer lift up. Something you're grateful for in this moment. And if the chat isn't your space, then feel free to share in the mic. What's something that you are grateful for that ensures your growth right now, today? Yes, good health. Grateful for mentors. Opportunity provided by CDF to just be here with everybody. Yes, thank you. Grateful. Mountains. Grateful for family. Thank you. Thank you for the gift and the wisdom of leadership. And those are gathered to share. Yes. Warm weather, Arielle, and chosen family. Yes, thank you. I'm grateful for my community. They hold me accountable and inspire me to grow. New opportunities. I'm grateful for the Children's Defense Fund, for life. Grateful for the Harambe and the video shared on CDF's Facebook. For beautiful weather. Grateful for the both of us and this project. So grateful for that. For the Chumash territory and SoCal. Thanks, Elaine and Ched. Sisters and brothers that share our passion for the work. Grateful for community. Grateful for presence. For these opportunities to be in community and fellowship with others with like hearts. Grateful for this time together. Again, I want to lift up, if anybody wants to share, speak into the mic, you are welcome to. All right. Mi nombre es Mauricio Tafur Salgado again. That's my name. And in that name, folks, is my family. Mauricio, a name my mother loved, chose for me. Tafur, my mother's maiden name, which she made sure came before my father's, so that I remembered who came first. My mother, that woman who bore me, yes. And then my father, Salgado, that deep family name, conflicted name, both the name of a Spanish colonizer and the name that points to the erased, the Pijao, those indigenous ancestors who were mixed into and assimilated, who I can no longer trace. I bring all of those with me today. And I'm modeling a little bit for you folks because I'm hoping you're going to do the same soon enough. Share, name an ancestor that you bring with you today and maybe do a little bit of writing about them in the chat briefly. But before I pass off to everybody else, Arielle, will you introduce yourself and someone that you carry with you while I plug in my computer? Go for it, Arielle.
Indeed. Hey y'all, my name is Arielle Julia Brown. I am calling here from the land of Creek folks, also known as Roswell, Georgia, Atlanta, staying with a friend in a moment of migration with my family. And I think in the spirit of that, I call forward and bring forward my grandmother, Connie Walker Brown, who's passed on in the last couple of years, but whose spirit with and through migration and journeying is always with me. Yeah. So we invite you to offer, I'll share a bit about my name. My name is Arielle. I was named by my mother and my grandmother. My grandmother Eva, and it means lioness of God, and also from the soap opera. And Julia is an ancestor name, and it is one of the names of the eldest names of an ancestor that I can call forward. And yeah, Brown is a family name that is also a name that moved through with my folks who were enslaved in North Carolina. Yeah, so some of you are already bringing in your introductions into the chat. We just invite you, if we were in person, we might sit together and spend time kind of moving through this together. But we just kind of invite you to present yourself and to present your folks with you in the chat. What you may know of your name as it was given to you, or a chosen name. And yeah, just generally where you're calling in from and who you're bringing with you.
I'm not off mute. Hi, I'm Veronica Roberts Perkins, and I currently live in Little Rock, Arkansas, and attend Memphis Theological in Memphis, Tennessee. I bring with me today my great-grandmother, whose name was Lucinda Smith. She was a slave from Virginia, but somehow ended up in Mississippi, around Bolivar, Mississippi. And she met her husband, and they ended up in Eastern Arkansas in the late 1800s. And so I'm not exactly sure how they came to the Roberts name. We've been trying to trace that, but haven't had the best of luck in being able to track all of that down. But I bring my great-grandmother, Lucinda Smith, who she lived to be 110 years old.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Perkins. Would anyone else care to share?
Okay, I'll go ahead and share that. I was trying to type in the chat. So I'm Leah Nanyanga Wandera. I'm from Kenya, but currently joining from here at Drew University. And my name, Leah, my father named Leah, which is in the Bible, that is to reflect our Christian faith. And funny, my younger sister is called Rachel. So they always make fun of us, Leah and Rachel being the wives to Jacob. And Nanyanga is my grandmother's name, my late grandmother's name, who was the mother to my father. And I was named after her. So today I just bring with me the memories and the work that my grandmother did. She was a women's rights advocate, although she was never named, but I feel like her efforts and support has seen me this far. And then Wandera is my father's second son name. So with me, I carry my father's clan or tribe together. So supposedly I get married, I can replace Wandera if I want to.
Got it. Thank you, Leah. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for sharing, for your posting. Please take a moment to read what folks are posting. Let's just do that right now. Let's take a moment to honor the beautiful stories that are being shared here in the chat. Thank you, everybody, for posting. And please, by all means, continue posting, or if you're still working on your posts, continue to do so. It's really powerful. The listening has started, right? I love it already, Arielle, because the listening is happening obviously this way orally. I'm doing this, but I'm also listening with my eyes, right? As I'm reading, I'm taking in, I'm trying to read between the lines, right? The implications, the insinuations, the depth of the story. Reading with my culture, the way I understand generation and family history, right? All the layers in which I listen, rather, right? The deep listening that's already happening in this listening party. Can we call this, Arielle, a listening party, this thing that we're up to?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. In so many ways, we are listening, and we would hope that we are partying in some kind of way, we would hope that this gathering that we are in together right now feels like a cohesive group. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I feel that in the intimacy that you all are sharing in your stories and bringing us so deeply into that.
Thank you. Friends, I want to honor the amount of time that we have together by giving you some guidelines, some direction. Where are we going in this conversation? Here it is. We're going to take a moment. We're in it, this first beat, introducing ourselves and the work of Remember 2019, contextualizing what we've been up to. this where our listening parties have taken us. Then we want to talk about intergenerational listening. Some of that was happening last night, both modeled, right? We were listening to different generations of folks in the opening evening's events. And there was also a call that was being made for how we should listen across generations, for how we should speak across generations. So let's take that further as we think about intergenerational listening parties. And we're going to move that into small group discussions. Then we're going to take a break. We're going to take a 5 at about 40 minutes, so 20, 25 minutes from now. And then we're going to return. Arielle has put together a worksheet for us. We wanted to make sure that you walked away with at least a sense, some skills. The way we approach it, by all means, you can modify and take and expand and refract and reflect as you so choose, as you think about your own listening parties and what that means. Any questions here about the agenda? Take a moment here. All right, no questions. Then I want to introduce some other party people, some other Remember 2019 co-producers. This is the rest of our team. They're also here with us today. This is Yasmani Arboleda, Carlos Sierra, and Ashley Teague. And the 5 of us make up Remember 2019. What is Remember 2019? It is an effort to make space for the congregation of the Black communities and Black cultural workers of Phillips County, Arkansas. That is the Southeast Delta region, just across from Clarksdale. Our work is to support and facilitate local practices of self-determination, memory, and reflection that are directly related to the mass lynching of 1919, the lasting effects of racial terror, and the current and future health of these communities. There is a lot there, folks. That's a lot. I'm pausing now. Thoughts, comments, questions? And feel free to post them in the chat or by turning on your mic and sharing that way.
Oh my, I was born and raised in Phillips County, Oneida, Arkansas, which is situated between Barton and Lakeview.
Right, that's
and
right.
12 miles from Elaine. My mother and father, we were born and raised, my 5 brothers and I, in Oneida.
Wow.
So
Wow.
thank you. If I get emotional, don't worry about it. Just push me to the side.
Oh, no. On the other hand, we lift it up, we hold it. We're emotional too. So thank you, Dr. Perkins, for naming all of that. We honor your home. What else, folks? Anybody else got any questions or comments? There's a lot in here. We want to make sure that there's room. If anyone's got a thought. I know one question that we often get, and that is, what happened in 1919? What is this mass lynching we're talking about? And we want to invite you, in fact, to turn to where we turn to for information about what happened, to this, to a book that Ida B. Wells Barnett published in 1920, right after it happened, because Ida B. Wells, in fact, snuck into Arkansas, as no doubt some of you know, right? Enemy of the state, not allowed in the South, snuck into Arkansas pretending to be one of the relatives of these 12 men on this book cover, otherwise known as the Elaine 12, the 12 men who were sentenced to death for this uprising, this false narrative about this uprising. And Ida B. Wells snuck in to this maximum security prison where they were sitting on death row, and told the guards that she was a relative there to pray with them and to sing with them, sat with them in a circle, and started singing. And as they all sang, Ida B. Wells collected their testimonies one by one. And from that, we get this book, one of the first honest accountings of what took place, because as you will learn, the government and the dominant white narrative was otherwise. But as we understand today, over the course of 2.5, 3 days, the number is vague, but historians name anywhere between 200 plus people were killed or lynched, as our group has come to understand, for their land, in order to take their land and take their crop. Story, deep story, we invite you to look there as we continue our work. Here are the 4 organizing principles for our work. Our work is remember, right? Our work is to remember, and 2019, let's go through what we mean by that. To remember is to recall. That's our first proposal here. We recall the mass lynching of 1919 and the intergenerational trauma that it caused for the Black communities of Phillips County. Trauma that persists today. To remember is to reunite. Our work, right, is to support this, to support the members of distant and different communities, to remember those communities in order to self-determine, see one another, and value their interconnectedness. As Dr. Perkins has said it, Dr. Perkins lives in Little Rock, but knows, Oneida knows Phillips County, has family there, no doubt, as so many people over the course of the last 100 years have migrated from their origins because of actions like these. It's important in our work that we are encouraging this, the act of reuniting, to what? To self-determine and to recognize and value their interconnectedness over time. Next, to remember is to remind. We center our work on the values and traditions that have brought us this far and are the wellspring of our enduring joy. As no doubt some of you know, we are at Proctor for a reason. So many of our communities might be struggling with this, the capacity to value their traditions, the capacity to value themselves. Because we're told otherwise, right? We're told to devalue our communities. All that the popular narrative likes to say is the deficits. Talk about the deficits, when in fact there is a lot there in our traditions that have helped us endure over time. So we want to remind our communities of that. And then finally, to remember 2019, distinction here, not 1919, right? To remember 2019 is to call forth. We call forth community creativity and wisdom to encourage a reimagining of our future 100 years after the Elaine mass lynching of 1919. Because no doubt, as those of you who might be new to this history, our first act might be to turn to the history, might be to turn to 1919. And depending on your proximity, how removed you are, I'll say for myself, as a Latine person with no ties beyond, I'm first generation, to encounter this is at a distance. And in my distance, I might turn to pity. I might turn to sadness. I might turn to all these ways that in fact doesn't acknowledge the reality of who the community is today and what they do and how they've endured and how beautiful they remain. How beautiful it is that they continue to be. And that's what it is for us to remember 2019 and not just 1919. But to remember and to call forth this community creativity and wisdom. Our working values, folks, I'm going to turn it over here to Arielle, and then we'll take another pause for questions and comments.
Beautiful. Yes. So these are a suite of working values that we hold dear and close to our work, and quite frankly, that hold us accountable in our work, that shape the ethos of each of the projects that we get into, and you'll get a chance really soon to see some of those projects. But just to kind of offer an overview of each of these. We value sharing stories. We believe that the stories we share reflect the truths we live by. We are committed to creating spaces to listen and share stories so that these truths can continue to inform and reshape our cultural narrative. We value cultural specificity. We believe that the Black cultural and spiritual traditions of the Arkansas Delta region hold within them the capacity for transformative storytelling, radical imagination, and healing. Our work is to lift and expand the capacities of Black local cultural traditions while interrogating and holding the specificity of our own cultural lenses and traditions. We value culturally specific histories. We recognize that there are many culturally specific forms of collecting history, and we recognize that history is fundamental to culture and that cultures have been systemically weakened and destroyed when their forms of collecting history are delegitimized. So we are committed to practicing culturally specific traditions of collecting and sharing history. And that's a bit of what we'll talk about today via the form of the listening party. We value moral fundraising and fund management. As informed by our community partners, we want to invest in the economic betterment of the community through our cultural work. We are committed to raising funds from individuals and investors that are seeking economic justice and not the exploitation of peoples oppressed by poverty. We are committed to engaging in transparent conversation with our community partners about our budgets. Finally, we strive to allocate at least 40% of our funds to our community partners and participants directly. Transformative justice is a value of ours. We believe that mass incarceration is a direct descendant of chattel slavery. The incarceral state continues to deny our communities the right to self-determination. And we believe that a transformation of all our social systems must take place to justly hold all members of the beloved community. We believe in intergenerational collaboration, clearly. We are committed to organizing spaces that are intergenerational. We believe that transmission of Black local cultural traditions across generations is essential to the process of self-determination, memory, and reflection. And finally, we believe in the moral imaginary. We seek an expansive imaginary that builds bridges with our enemies, that imagines complex realities that go beyond dualism and polarity, that risks stepping into the mystery of the unknown, that lies beyond the far too familiar landscape of violence.
Thank you, Arielle. Appreciating, is it Carissa?
Yes, that's me.
Thank you. Appreciating you acknowledging these values. Thanks, Carissa.
Of course, of course. I appreciate the very thorough walking through. I think lots of folks like to think that they believe these or say they believe them, but hearing them called out in depth in the space is really appreciated.
And you know what, Carissa, to that point, we in fact have to do that with each other all the time. Every time we engage with the community, there's a moment where someone in the group is like, wait, how are we honoring culturally specific histories in this? And no doubt in the work, there have been moments where we feel like we are not adequately living up to these values. And so we get to do something about it, right? We get to be honest and hold ourselves accountable to that. So.
Yes, you can't see me because it's lunchtime where I am, so my camera's off, but I'm literally like basically jumping up and down. So thank you both.
Yeah, no, and please enjoy your lunch. Food is a part of parties too, right? We got to eat. Anybody else have a comment or a question about these before we move on? Okay, thanks, Leah, for the heart. Moving on, folks, our work, I'm going to move through this quickly. You can get to know about our work through our website in greater detail. But some examples of what all of this looks like in practice. It looks like our communities telling us, hey, This is what we would like to see happen. We like after school, summer school programs for our youth. Great. All right, let's figure out how we can support that, be it by doing it ourselves or by funding it so that others locally can do it. It looks like play readings, bringing in authors who have written about the community and hiring local performers to read those plays in community and process what those plays have to say. It looks like story circles, gathering in circles, offering up a question, a theme, and inviting conversation, developing, sharing further about on these themes in order for the community to do that, to build its memory, to remind, to reunite. It looks like a story sharing institute. This is a 2-day institute that Arielle and Carlos have led over the past couple of years with key community members focusing on culturally specific histories. How does the community gather its history? Can we lift up, can we name those technologies, affirm them, refine them, and encourage them in our communities? Our work looks like Black and the Blues, stories and songs from the Arkansas Delta. This is a musical show that we toured throughout Arkansas that was a tour itself of the blues, gospel, and R&B 100 years of gathering in hush harbors. And so our cast was Mookie Cartwright, 26-year-old blues phenom, Vera White. I'm not going to share Vera's age. She'd be mad at me for doing that. From Elaine, and James Gone for Good Morgan, who's in his 70s, who's an old R&B Motown singer, sharing stories about growing up in the community and singing songs. Toured this around Arkansas. Most recently, it looks like Calling Down the Road, the residency, and Calling Down the Road, a story bank. This residency was an opportunity for 6 local community members to develop their own oral history projects. Some of them engaging strangers, some of them just telling and lifting up their personal stories within their families, all in their own unique way, listening to one another, learning from one another's process. And then a story bank where we collected 100 stories in key locations throughout Phillips County, places where folks gather, typically to share stories, restaurants, barbershops, community centers, churches. And all of those stories you can find transcribed as well as the audio version of them on our website. Most recently, it looks like Black Cypress, a Phillips County survival guide. This is a book that we just printed and passed out. It's a collection of stories, songs, recipes, prayers, and pictures that reflect how the community in Phillips County has endured during difficult times. This was our response to pandemic. We can't gather in person. Let's gather from afar. Let's build this archive and turn it into a beautiful book. And then finally, what we're here to talk about today, it looks like a couple of listening parties, right? I talked about that story bank. I talked about this residency, Calling Down the Road, and from that came this mixtape. Arielle and Carlos curated 100 minutes of the many more minutes of stories down to 100, and then constructed these listening parties that took place over the course of a day. It was a procession over the course of a day. In the morning, we started in Marvel. Where we gathered around objects, material, these beans, right? These brown beans, so familiar in the community, mason jars. And we welcome folks to begin imagining into recipes for Black liberation. And then we invited folks to write their recipes, right? As they're feeling these objects, taking the time to imagine what is included in that recipe. And then we paused and Arielle interviewed some of the local community members to share their stories. Here, Arielle is interviewing Ms. Marty McKissick, who is a local leader, elder, organist in her church, singer, comes from a long line of elders in the community. And then we invited folks to share their recipes for liberation. And here is Ms. Beatrice Shelby, who is one of our community leaders partners with the Boys, Girls, Adults Community and Development Center. We moved from there to Elaine during lunchtime, where we joined for a grill, for an outdoor grill, a fish fry at The Spot, the only Black-owned business on Main Street in Elaine. and where community leader Lenora Marshall used this megaphone to call all the youth up to speak their visions, their hopes for the future. Here are just some folks relaxing, conversing, sharing, gossiping, maybe. I doubt those two men would claim what they were doing was gossiping, but somebody would say they were gossiping. Depends on our politics here, yeah. They sit in deep conversation for sure. Here we are, James, who owns the spot, who is deeply involved in community, is the director of the Elaine Legacy Center, with one of the youngest generations, right? James, who is deeply embedded, hoping to pave a way for the younger generations. And here we see him lovingly holding that baby. And then finally, a passing on of the megaphone, right? To be carried by the youth in Elaine, to be held as both practical and metaphorical tool for the future of that community. And then finally in the evening, there we are being cute. Finally in the evening, here we are in Helena, West Helena, at the home of Faye Duncan Daniel and her sister Louise, gathered intergenerationally to share some very personal stories, which included, again, some food and some singing. Here we have Miss Ethel Hughes singing some spirituals, some gospel music, as well as some contemporary R&B to bring us into space across generation, and then ending with a pouring of libations to close the night and to honor our ancestors. So that's us modeling, right? Sharing a bit about an example of what a listening party looked like, right? What maybe you gathered through these pictures, what it felt like. Here we are at the very end of the night, because listening parties are deeply ritualistic. We created this flag 1919 to 2019, and we had some local youth, some flag bearers, stand in the middle of the road and flag the folks who are being invited into the community in, waving to them, hey, here is where you're meeting. Here is where we're gathering. Here's where you park, deep in Helena for the night. And that's our work. Let's talk about it a little bit. And let's talk about intergenerational listening, which you saw examples of, and us begin to talk about. And hopefully you gather that, right? Our work is about encouraging to affirm community, to gather, to be in space, to say, hey, you belong in space together. There is great power in space and in your memory. Arielle, do you want to move us into some conversation on this?
I do. Thank you for that. Thank you for that grounding. We are, because like the work of gathering and listening is so full and robust. We are thinking about ways to work it all in right now. So I just want to say that transparently. So I want to begin because I want to kind of root us in thinking through, dreaming together about the work of intergenerational listening. And I want us to kind of begin with like a roll call about like, let's kind of like root in like a listing and a naming of the intergenerational listening spaces we know. I think, I want to start us off, and I want to invite you to go into the chat and drop spaces that are intergenerational spaces for you for listening. But I mean, here we are gathered at the Children's Defense Fund's Proctor Institute, and we know this to be a beautiful intergenerational space year after year. As we're speaking about CDF, like lifting the work and the legacy of Freedom School as an intergenerational transmission space. That's right. People are beginning to list and name CDF. Thinking about church spaces as beautiful intergenerational transmission spaces. Community arts and theater groups. Yes, family reunions. Yes. Thank you. So continue to kind of list those in the chat, because it's this brainstorm of like, what are the spaces we know where we're already listening across generation, that is going to be the fodder for us thinking about what that looks like as a curated space that we self-determine that we develop. Woo, here they come. Senior centers and family get-togethers and intentional calls with elders. My aunt's house. Woo, yes, I have an auntie's house that is like the gathering spot. Sunday dinners, community festivals. Yes, yes. My church, close friends, family gatherings, sorority meetings and events. Yes, yes, yes. um, art spaces and events, seminary, yes, salons, yes, all kinds of salons, art spaces, the Garrett Evanson CDF Freedom Schools program, yes, my church time with my great nieces and nephews, our farmers market, church picnics, Sunday school, Bible study, community gatherings, coffee shops. Beautiful. Keep sending those in, because just naming those and being with those like gets us in the space. Like all the aesthetics we know, all of the practices and tactics and rituals we know to call in to make listening possible, we already know from those spaces, right? um, I want us to kind of, as we're like in this reflective space, I want to take us a little bit deeper into this. If you have some paper and pen, or maybe just a laptop, because some people like to type. I need my paper and my pen. But I would like to invite us into 4 minutes, let's say, of journaling. And I want us to sit with individually the prompts. Um, just one moment, I have the precise question here. I want you to sit with journaling about a time when you were heard or felt you needed to be heard across a generation, right? So thank you, Mo, for dropping that in the chat. Um, yeah, journal about a time for the next 4 minutes about a time when you were heard or needed to be heard across a generation. Beautiful. And we will reconvene at 2:49. Okay. I want to invite you to close the door gently on what you were writing, knowing that you can come back, that you've opened a door here that you get to walk back through. Come back around. Beautiful. We are going to take this time to take our 5-minute break for you to get some water. And we're going to come back and get into discussion and begin kind of working with the worksheet around how you might develop your own listening party. So let's meet back here at 2:55.
Thank you for that. I do want to lift up that Selma has named Elaine, the suite that was composed by Josh Evans, the trumpeter, which was featured at Lincoln Center, done by Jazz at Lincoln Center not too long ago, co-produced by EJI, the Equal Justice Initiative. So if you get a chance, check that out. I'll find a link and post it in the chat. See you all at 2:55.
What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? And who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? And who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? And who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? And who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? And who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? And who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? And who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? And who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? And who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it? What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? And why are you doing it?
That was sweet.
Everybody wanna see me fly, but don't nobody wanna see me fly. Everybody wanna see me fly, but don't nobody wanna see me fly. Everybody wanna see me fly, but don't nobody wanna see me fly. Everybody wanna see me fly, but don't nobody wanna see me. Everybody say they got my back, but don't nobody ever got my back. Everybody said they got my back, but don't nobody ever got my back. Everybody say they got my back, but don't nobody ever got my back.
They tryna hold me back.
Everybody say they got my back, but don't nobody ever got mine. Everybody wanna say they peace, but don't nobody wanna give me peace.
Everybody wanna say they peace, but don't nobody wanna give me peace.
Everybody wanna say they peace, but don't nobody wanna give me peace.
You know I need my peace.
Everybody wanna say they peace, but don't nobody wanna give me. Just fly away right now. 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 I just wanna fly away, fly away. I just wanna fly.
I just wanna fly away, fly away. I just wanna fly.
I just wanna fly away, fly away. I just wanna fly, 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 fly.
I wanna fly away. I wanna fly away. I wanna fly away. I wanna fly away.
Just fly away
I
right
wanna fly
now.
I wanna fly away.
Just fly away
I
right
wanna
now.
fly away. I wanna fly away.
Just fly away
I
right
wanna
now.
fly away. I wanna fly away.
Just fly away
I wanna
right
fly away.
now.
I just wanna fly away, fly away. I just wanna fly. I just wanna fly away, fly away. I just wanna fly.
All right, everybody. That was Fly Away, again off the album Grow by Eli Lakes. And Arielle, do you know these folks? Is it Liza Garza? Is it, I assume Liza, no, Lisa Garza?
It is Liza Garza.
Yeah, Arielle, yesterday when we were finishing our planning, Arielle was like, this album, play this album.
Yeah, this is speaking of intergenerational listening, this is a mother and son group. They are based here where I am in Atlanta, Georgia. And yeah, you can get their music on Apple Music, and I just love this album. Beautiful. So we would love for us to kind of like move through the things that came up for you in your journaling. And in addition to moving through the things that came up for you, We also want to throw in one more question that you might break out into small groups and talk through. We're curious about, and we've been jamming a lot about how culture facilitates listening and gets in the way of listening. And so we want to sit with that question of like, how does culture get in the way of listening across a generation? Or yeah, that's the question.
And Arielle, you and I were just talking about this, right? Because in our own ways, right? Like I'm having issues with my mama, like you're deep in it with your family.
Yeah.
And there are moments where the culture feels like I understand how to listen because of the culture. And there are moments where it's like, the culture is getting in the way.
Yes. Yeah. I'll share very briefly that I had a difference, a major difference with my grandmother regarding supporting my mom through a move right now. And and she did or said something wrong, and I called her out on it. And those of y'all who are Black know that that's a no-no in the culture. Even if I was right, that's a no-no. So, so we've very recently been in deep conversation about how the culture can help and get in the way. And so we want to invite you to be in that conversation right now with each other.
I've posted 2 questions. The questions are in the chat. I've created the rooms. They're open now. Go ahead and choose your room. We'll see you. Arielle, what is it, 10 minutes?
Mauricio, this has just been extraordinary. What an incredible gift of leadership you and Arielle are providing. It's just, I am so moved and blown away. I took myself out of my small group just because I'm having to do organizing work at the same time, but I am so excited that you're both doing this for those who are in this session, but also that we have it recorded. And, I'm looking forward to being able to bring this work of this session to lots more folks. So just thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you for those words. Want to check in here with Sierra and Kim. Just want to make sure you're okay and you have any questions for me, which is why you've rejoined the main room.
No, something happened to my system and it knocked me back out, and then I had to log back on. So I'm
Same here.
Got it.
I don't know how it happened because I was about to get upset because I was enjoying the conversation.
Let me see if I can square you into a room, into another room. Give me 1 second. Okay. Yeah. Sierra, were you in a room?
I was not in the room. I just dropped off right after we came back from journaling, but I don't see a link to join a room either.
Got it. Why don't we who are here, let me just check in. 1 second. Sorry. Hi, folks. All right. How about those of us who are here, just stay here and we can process these 2 questions together. So, hi, Erica. Are you joining back into this main room because there was a technical issue? Yes. Okay. Erica, I see you. Move to room. Interesting. This breakout room procedure. Pat has joined us again. Hi. All right. Let me see if I can place.
Hey, Mauricio, let me know if you need any support.
Yeah, Jasmine. Actually, folks, because I feel like it's going to take us just as long to figure this out as it is for us to just talk. So how about those of us who are here, let's just talk. Let's talk through these questions, let's process, and then when the group joins us, the group will join us. So again, the questions were, I'll just lift them up, and Jasmine, if you can stop spotlighting me so we can all see each other, if that's okay.
Can do.
Thank you. So we feel good about the questions. Should I repeat them? Kim, you were about to jump in.
Well, I was just going to say that I was just thinking about from the standpoint of the first thing I thought about when you said the generational divides and what have you, and you know, wanting to be heard and or needing to be heard or haven't been heard. First thing I thought about when you said that was, you know, well, I guess I go back to in my teen years. You know, there's a lot of things you sit around talking. Kids have a tendency to pool the wealth of their ignorance, and when I get a certain age, I ain't never gonna say that. And then you find yourself saying the very thing that you say you'd never say, or when I get to be a mom or dad, I ain't never gonna do my kids that way. And then, you know, you find yourself doing the very thing you said you'd never do. But I was thinking my wife and I are both in our late 40s, and you know, we've been married about 26 years almost, and we have a son that's 20, and especially when he got into his teen years, especially he, you know, we became the more stupid the further he got to from 18 to 19 to 20, and he's now 20. And you know, we find ourselves in this thing where we have to say we're gonna have to back off of our parenting mode and just be there in the periphery when he does break or whatever happens, just to be there to scoop him up, but let him learn on his own for a little while, because at some point our wisdom will become valuable again. And so,
yeah, thank you for that. That definitely resonates for me. Want to check in here with Erica and Pat and Nathan, if you want to offer anything in response or of your own to what Kim has offered.
Yeah, so that definitely resonates for me. I've got a 14-year-old daughter, so I'm just entering the zone of mommy doesn't know anything and I know everything. And I'm struggling with the parameters of how much to pull back. I mean, because she's 14, but then, she's 14. So, and I'm also at the point where I am saying words are coming out of my mouth that I swore I'd never say. And it's like, where did my mom come from? So I can totally relate to that. So it's a trying time and it's a fun time.
Yeah, thank you, Erica.
Don't start easing back till you say 18, 19 is when you start kind of making a digression.
Okay.
Slightly.
Okay.
20, you can't tell them anything.
You know what though, Kim, I feel that, and yet I feel like, so I've got a newborn. I'm at 13 weeks. So there's a whole heap of listening on both sides happening, because there are times that baby's crying and I know I'm not listening too well. I don't know how to answer, and vice versa, right? And yet, Kim, as I think about myself as a child, as I reflect on my new parenting, I feel like I continue through waves of that. Like even at my age right now.
Well, sure. And I agree exactly what you're saying, because in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm still parenting, but I'm doing a different type of parenting. And even those who are older than myself, from whom I still need wisdom for that phase of life that they're in that I'm not in yet, I still feel like I'm being, in some sense, being parented by the older generation, because we're all moving through life together.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Michelle, checking in with you here. We're just in conversation. Technical difficulties are what they are. So we're just here chatting if you want to jump in. Nathan, Pat, anything to offer here on these questions, this reflection?
Well, sure, I'll jump in. I'm not sure what I heard the last little bit here, so taking it in. Not sure what we we're chewing on before that, but I was writing about especially question number 2. What does how does culture get in the way of listening across generation? I've had a kind of an interesting experience, what I think is generational. Sometimes I'm just like, is this cultural? Is this like specific vision movement work that some people just don't understand? But like, I've got a crew of folks in kind of their 30s and 40s that I'm working with, doing some racial justice work with. And I feel really at home with them. And I feel like we share, common language, common sort of vision and purpose. And then the church that I work at, there's a lot of things I love about it, but there, a lot of the people that I work with are in, my parents' generation. And I feel like I have to explain my worldview constantly. And I feel like constantly misunderstood about like what I even mean when I talk, and a lot of like the ideas, it feels very countercultural in society, but, just like, man, it feels like there's just I value the wisdom that folks bring, but I find myself being really frustrated with being misunderstood. And I remember one gathering I was at, and maybe this is partly about mentorship, partly about generational difference, but there was an elder at a gathering I was at of 20s and 30s folks. And she said, I'm here to support and I'm here to learn. And I just like the immense amount of support that I felt from them. I'm like, I want to be that elder when I'm, when I'm in their shoes. So I think that's what I was chewing on a little bit.
Thanks for that, Nathan. It's interesting. As I hear you describing this relationship to this elder, I think about what our expectations are of one another. Do you know, like, as you tell me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm hearing you say, I hope to be an elder who listens, who takes in, who processes, right? That's an expectation that we have of wise elders. And yet I know an elder, my mother, who doesn't feel heard, who's like, I could listen for days, but why don't you make room to hear me from time to time? So I only bring this up just because I'm so interested in these expectations that we create, the types, the way we think about, how a young person should listen or speak. Right? The ages are broad. It's even wrong, I think, to create this binary of young and old, right? There's so much more to that. Elaine and Ched, you want to jump in here?
Thank you. I'm turning on my video. We are in a very hot kitchen on a hot day, processing beautiful peaches from our tree. Proctor always happens right when our fruit is coming in. So we're always conflicted. When we're in Haley Farm, we can't do nothing about it, but this year we are. This is such a rich conversation. Just love so much, Mauricio, what you and Arielle are doing. What I was thinking about in this conversation is just a little different. I was thinking about how much I needed to hear from my grandparents' generation. And the tremendous loss I felt and feel still that I never got to hear family stories or family wisdom or family trauma from my paternal grandmother, who was kind of the link to the Mexican side of my family. And she was so beaten down by gender roles and culture as a Californian. And she, my dad was an only child, and she was at that point an only child because her uncle had been killed, or her brother had been killed. And I just didn't get anything from that family. I remember sitting with her, and we all internalized the kind of white dismissal of this little brown lady. And it's just one of the wounds that I carry because I never got to hear from her. It's a little bit different than not being heard, but that goes both ways. Just a huge wound that I don't really know how to heal except by hearing from other elders and trying to make up for that. So thanks for listening.
Thanks for that, Ched. I'm thinking here to what Kim is bringing up about the ways in which we recognize that we still need parenting, that we still need the wisdom of our elders. And I appreciate what you're saying here, Ched, that sometimes our elders have passed on, so we can't get it directly from our blood elders, but what is it to model that? I mean, I'm thinking about my baby and wanting to see now, I want to model for my baby that I'm listening to my elders, that I'm reaching out to my elders for questions, so that my baby watches me do that and maybe someday might want to do the same because I cared in that way. Because I will share, and welcome back everybody as we come back into this conversation. I'll relinquish the mic to Arielle once I'm done here. That an interesting piece of our work in Arkansas is how much those elders are really careful about what they share and what they do not share. And how the elders, for as much as younger generations might be reaching to the elders and saying, hey, talk to us about these stories, some of the elders are very careful and say, no, I don't want to share those stories, because those stories are passing down legacies of hurt and of trauma for whatever reason they're choosing, right? And I don't want to project what's underneath that, but acknowledging that there are moments when I want to hear from an elder and the elder's like, actually, I'm not ready to speak to that. And what that does to both of us, what that does to a generation that is in need of learning and a generation that is choosing otherwise. And everybody's back. Hi, everybody, welcome. Arielle, we're here, we're in it. Those who remained in the room, we continue the conversation. How would you like us to pick up, Arielle?
Beautiful. I mean, my conversation with Maria Cabo was so good. I'm so wanting to hear what people took away from that. And I'm wondering if like dropping like some personal takeaways in the chat is a space to do that, given the time that we have. Yeah. So yeah, things that came up for you about intergenerational listening in your conversations together. Yeah, I'm seeing one beautiful gift is to learn things about our elders from our children. Things my mom has not shared with me, she is comfortable sharing with my daughter, and that is such a gift and a blessing. Whew, amen. That's so true. Listening is work, but necessary communal work. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. Keep sending those in, and I will share those. I think as we are waiting, because unfortunately we only have a few minutes left here together. We should have known, Mo, that like this would be like, so that we would be so deep in the richness of this, to be able to get through everything. But I want to share with each of you, first of all, documents. Mo, could you put that document in there? Okay.
I can. Would you like me to screen share it?
Please do. That'd be great. So this document that we're going to drop in the chat, which we invite you to download and work with, is just a worksheet that I developed that is an effort to move you through really the dreaming around a listening party. That, you know, listening parties, depending on how you design them, have a lot of technical elements. Like if you want to like play a mixtape, you have to build this mixtape and then, you know, broadcast that across a space. And this worksheet doesn't move you through those nuts and bolts. It moves you through the like 30,000 feet up, the deep heart work of how to create a space that really convenes us across to bridge the things that we've been talking about for the last 15 minutes, right? To kind of bridge the differences across our spaces and ages and locations. So I'll just do a brief moment of talking us through this document. And I think that we will collectively try and write through one of these prompts. And I invite you, as I said, to kind of continue on the journey with this form. And yeah, so first at the top, we have listening party goals. And I think it's worthwhile to think about what you would like to see come from this. This question here is, what would you like audience witnesses to leave the space with? What would you like to see come from this space? I think that in Elaine, for example, and I'll try and give examples for each of this, at our listening party at the spot, we, of course, were really concerned with intergenerational space and creating space for the young people in Elaine to be able to speak and take up space in public. But we were also just really interested in having a very Black public celebration on Main Street and taking up space on Main Street for listening and witnessing and Black joy. And I
didn't mean to call.
Hey. So yeah, so that's a goal that we had for that particular listening party. The listening party overview, I'll come back to that because I think we'll sit with that prompt. If you could scroll down, Mo, thank you. Audience witnesses listening traditions. And we've really been sitting with this throughout the whole workshop already. But what are the listening practices of the community of witnesses you are gathering? What are the traditions of these people that make listening come easy, right? I think about church, like what is the order of worship that needs to be in place in order for you to be able to receive teaching, right? Or what has to happen around a Thanksgiving table in order for you to be ready and willing to listen to stories, right? So thinking about all of the traditions that like come together to make a space possible for the people that you're working with and identifying the people that you're working with. The invitation, how and where will you invite people to come to your listening party? Consider how this invitation sets the tone for the gathering. Locations, centering listening. What locations in person or online are hubs for the act and process of listening in the communities you're working with? What does partnership with these spaces look like? I think we know now, I mean, you all, I imagine, are familiar with, gosh, why am I blanking on the name of that app? What's the app that like people just get online and talk to each other? Clubhouse, right? The Clubhouse space where people are just like getting on these group calls and moving through a topic. There's something about not having to, like in an online space, not having a lot of visual imagery or Zoom, like that like gets in the way of listening, right? So that's an example of an online space. And we know that there are many in-person spaces that are hubs for listening. Yeah. Foods that center listening. I was just working with an artist. I live in Philly, like full-time regularly, and I was working with an artist who was hosting a women's circle, and she was hosting a brunch, and she was like, well, the last brunch we had like chicken and waffles and like omelets and all this stuff. And she's like, I'm just gonna give people cucumber sandwiches because that food was too heavy for people to actually like listen to each other. So being real about like, not just like, sweet potato pie makes everybody want to listen. That may be true, but like getting into the weeds of like what do certain foods do to our bodies, and how does that like affect our ability to listen? Ritual centering listening. What collective rituals or practices do your audience witnesses work with to set up the tone for deep listening? And, you know, we talk about ritual all the time, but ritual can be everything from collective journaling. You know, breathing together is a beautiful ritual that we often hold in space together. Yeah, what are kind of, you know, prayer is a beautiful ritual that kind of ushers us into a space of listening. So yeah, what are those rituals that kind of anchor and transform our attention so that we can better be with each other? And then other storytelling technologies. And what we're thinking about is like, yeah, this question, what storytelling technologies might be most compelling and accessible to your audience witnesses? So this might be live sound, perhaps a song, you know, many a space I've been in where like people are chit-chatting and like not not having a singular focus, and someone begins to raise a song or sing, and that transforms the room, right? And so song, live oration as a technology, and then of course recorded sound. We talk about like the development of our mixtape and recorded oral histories and interviews through the Calling Down the Road project. Yeah, so yeah, this is just an overview of this forum. Are there any pressing, any questions or clarifying questions we can answer about this forum? Drop them in the chat and we will respond to those. With our last little bit of time, I want to invite you into, we have not much time at all. I want to invite you to offer a sentence, or maybe it's, yeah, maybe it's like just, I don't think we have the time to do this, Momo. I don't think we have the time to do this. So I think we have put the form, we're going to put the form in the chat again for you all to be able to work with. And we would love to make ourselves available to you to continue to be in conversation about this. But with this last bit of time, I'd like to invite you all either over speaker or in the chat to lift something that you're listening to that comes up for you. Yeah, that like over the last hour and a half, you've been listening to and with, or that's staying with you. Maybe something you've heard that is remaining with you as you transition out of this space. I see the importance of creating spaces to listen and to be heard. Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's driven home for me as well right now, too. Already brainstorming how to do listening parties at my church. That's beautiful. I was just asked to convene an older adult group, so I will try playing a 1960s or 70s music and ask for thoughts. Yes, beautiful. Listening has to be intentional. Wonderful workshop, so much energy around this work. Thank you, thank you. The importance of balancing being a child and an elder. Ooh, that's right. Yes, yeah, that both of those inside of a single person. Yes. Thank you so much for this session, this whole idea of intergenerational listening and preserving legacy and passing on rich heritage to you while together imagining an even brighter future together. Yes, yes, yes. By the way, an intergenerational mixtape, in order to be legit, has to actually be a cassette tape. Ooh, gotcha. Gotcha. Very inspiring workshop, encouraging for me. Thank you. I loved your list of values at the beginning. Thank you. Old People's Clubhouse has a cassette player. Come on now. Indeed. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you, Selma. Yeah, I'm taking with me, just gosh, what is the need for intergenerational listening on the other side of this moment we've just survived? And how has that moved? How has that changed? You know, in this time when we've been so intensely together and so intensely apart, what does listening look like now?
Yeah, Arielle, on that note, I'll finish by sharing with our book, as I just sat with one of the contributors and they read what they wrote in the midst of pandemic. They were taken aback by what they were saying, right? And in that way, they're listening to themselves, right? To their self, to an older version of their self. All the layers of listening and asking, how do we do this when right now what it feels like what's required of us socially is to get going, is to move past, is to get beyond. And Carol was saying, nope, we actually have to make the room right now to stop and pause and go, what's been happening? Who are we again? Especially as we come back together and learn to be in space and touch again and see again in that close way. Yes, Erica, there is a website. The website is remember2019.org. Our contact information is there. You can check it out there. It's been an honor, folks. It is 3:30. We want to honor your time. Thank you, Arielle, for holding it down with me. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for being here today. I'll leave you with a song, Grateful. Thank you, everyone.
Said the sun is shining down on me. Grateful for this love. Now I'm free. Said the sun is shining down on me. Grateful for this love. Now I'm free. Yeah. Said the rain is pouring down on me.
This is the same album, folks, that I've been playing throughout. This is Grateful by Eli Lakes and Liza Garza of the album Grow. And Dr. Perkins, we hope to connect. We have reason to, so please visit us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I actually had a question for you.
Yes.
I saw that are you based in Warren County?
Yes, I am.
Is that where Warrenton is?
Is that where Warrenton?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. My people are from there. My dad's people are from there.
What are their names?
Brown and Gilchrist.
Gilchrist, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the reason, the other thing that this was a very helpful workshop because we have the 1921 project and we kicked it off in January with an invitation for the entire community to do some reflection on race and racism and white supremacy, and to also ask what do we want our community to be in 2121. So it was posed as a project of reflection and projection. And we got some young people involved, and we did a reenactment of 100-year-old trial that was held for 16 Black men who were involved in a gunfight in North Carolina, which is the next little town. So I really appreciate, some of the ideas for recalling and, some of the activities that you can do, like the building the story lab or the story libraries. We had planned to do something like that at a festival, but then we ran into some sounding issues. But the young people will be interviewing elders about, their experiences with race and racism in the county.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can we exchange contact information?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Be glad to. I'll put do you want me to, I can just put my information in the chat here?
Yeah.
And you can then send me your email.
Yeah.
Yeah, I plan to get the book for sure.
Arielle and Mauricio, this is Jed. I just had a question about the Elaine project. The construction of the memorial in 2019 that people like Wendell Griffin were quite critical of. How did you all navigate that piece, or is that too long and complicated of a story? Griffin was talking about same people who did the killing 100 years ago, or the descendants of the ones that are putting up this monument kind of stuff. Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah, I can share briefly, and then Arielle, if you want to join in on that afterwards. What was important for us is that we were engaged in a kind of storytelling that made room for who people were today, because so much of the issue with that bit of history is that it is contentious. There is the dominant white narrative, which erased the majority of that story. Then there are historians which have been trying to piece together a narrative, but still they often center select individuals. For example, Scipio Africanus, who is the lawyer who helped make the case, or the Elaine 12. But so often, how many people, how many others were involved in that event? And so what was important for us was to make spaces where it felt like we were making room for those ancestors to be spoken about or shared outwardly. So in that year, in 2019, we had the story banks going. We had this residency going where we had individuals collecting doing their own oral history projects. We were touring Black in the Blues, which was about technologies, healing technologies, the technologies of hush harbors, how folks gather during times of difficulty, asking this question, what was the sermon the week after the massacre? What must that have been like, right? To know how leaders held their own in the midst of those challenges, and how leaders hold their own today. And that all of our events were live events. So we weren't placing anything permanent in the ground because the memory is still live. It's still present. And we happen to be, we performed our event, Black in the Blues, in Elaine. So we were partnering with Elaine while this other memorial was not partnering with folks in Elaine. We were in Elaine, the 100-year on the centennial evening that the massacre went down, in the equivalent, in a community organizing space, also gathering intergenerationally as they had been, also gathering to sing as they had been, but this time in light of something different, right? So in that way, we were looking more closely and trying to reenact in a way that lifted up the enduring joy of the people. Arielle, am I capturing that right? Maybe.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, I think so. And I think like the heart of what you're saying, what you're capturing, that I think our project has had to move with and navigate, like really since 2017, is like, how much do we center the work of fighting the dominant narrative around like what happened, and how much do we center like the living? How much do we center the dead? What do we understand as like, yeah, and yeah. I mean, we were just talking about this the other day, Mo, about like how the work of monumentality like seems to be a race against like white supremacy and like white supremacist ways of like using monumentality as an instrument. And I don't know if that's what we're interested in as much anymore. I don't know if that's what we're interested in. I think like primarily because I don't know that that's what people in Black folks in Phillips County are interested in. That's why. I think like if they were interested in that, we would be free, maybe, you know.
Right. Well, folks, I'm sorry I have to leave. I have another meeting, but I really would like to, you know, check in with you all again, because I think we have some of those same questions and we get some of the same pushback. But 1921 was also a year where North Carolina was right at the height of disenfranchising Black voters. We see evidence of that today. It was also a time when sharecropping was strongly instituted. And we see evidence of that today. You know, people can't get out of poverty because they can't make living wages. And we also see, you know, the disproportionate number of African-American men still, you know, being locked up. And so that, you know, sometimes get buried because people want to fuss about whether or not we should get over it and not put a monument up, or, you know, that kind of thing. But we're not doing anything about the things that happened 100 years ago. So anyway, but peace and blessings to you. I am so happy and privileged to meet you all, and we'll be in touch. I have to go and deal with something else now. Take care. Bye-bye. And Elaine and Chad, I enjoyed your program, your workshop yesterday.